Welcome back to patreon.com/the Derrick Lamon Experience, your one-stop shop for your gaming news. Of course, this is the Week in Gaming. This airs at 2 p.m. on Saturday afternoons on Patreon, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time on the free feeds on the following Monday. That would be iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, iHeart, Amazon Music, etc., etc. Gonna get a few small things out of the way before we get into the meat and potatoes of this episode. First story, I have some information apparently on the Super Mario Brothers movie 2. It's going to feature more Easter eggs for hardcore fans. If you are a kid that grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, or late 80s and 90s, and you played Nintendo or Super Nintendo or anything like that, apparently this movie is going to be for you. If you can recite certain scenes from the movie The Wizard, as I can, this movie is going to be for you, apparently. Super Mario Brothers Movie 2 is going to feature some deep cuts for the hardest of hardcore Nintendo fans. That's according to Toad voice actor Keegan Michael Key, who spoke exclusively to Men's Journal about the sequel to 2023's second highest grossing movie. Quote, one thing I can say about the second movie is that it's a little broader in scope, and where it takes place is very intriguing lore and the Mario world, says Key. They're going to find some really fantastic Easter eggs, and it's been very exciting so far. The first movie was already stuffed with Easter eggs from retro references to fourth wall breaks, so it'll be interesting to see how Nintendo outdoes itself this time. I not gonna lie, I kind of want to see some Super Mario Brothers stuff, 2 stuff, like which it's Super Mario Brothers 2 here in the US. The true Super Mario Brothers 2 that they got in Japan is what we got on Super Mario All Stars in the SNES, which ended up being Super Mario Brothers: The Lost Levels. The version that we got here in the US is just Mario skinned over Doki Doki Panic because they felt like the I think they sent it to God, he was the game master. He played all the games. I can't think of his name right now, but it said it was really, really hard, and American kids just would struggle with the game. So we didn't get the Japanese version of that until Super Mario All Stars on the SNES, which was the Lost Levels. Again, we got Super Mario Brothers skinned over Doki Doki Panic, and that's why it looks so drastically different. Um, Obviously from the first one, but no Mario game really looked the same after that. Now the 3D games tend to kind of resemble each other since like the Wii U. Um, you still got some side-scrolling Mario games that tend to resemble each other, but aside from those, Super Mario Brothers 2 is really like the outlier and for obvious reasons. Key continues, quote, I feel like what they've done creatively is what they've really widened out is they've really widened out the universe that these characters live in, and we're going to meet some new folks. We're going to meet some new folks that are old favorites, and some folks that I think are really deep cuts. But because of the way the story's laying itself out right now, those characters are going to be very intriguing. The question is, how deep of a cut are we talking? Can we get a reference to Lotaku, the Google-eyed creature that uses a fishing hook to save you from plummeting off the track in Mario Kart? Or could we go even deeper with Easter eggs for the likes of Midbus, Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, Wart from Super Mario Brothers 2? It would be dope if we saw Wart. Um, I think, God, what is the camera company in Japan? Fuji. Fuji actually, if I'm not mistaken, owns the rights to Wart and the characters in Super Mario Brothers 2. If you notice, that's essentially like the only Mario game that we've not seen like a remake, or we haven't seen the characters show up in something like Super Smash Brothers or something like that. We just never get that because Fujifilm, if I'm not mistaken, owns those characters. So I don't know. In any case, Keegan Michael Key says longtime Nintendo fans are in for an absolute treat, and I, for one, cannot wait. I'm a super duper Mario head, and I love the first film. I watched that trailer when it came out like 20 times in a row. Um, I can't wait to see this film. I can't wait to see the first trailer. I can't wait to see what they're working on. I want to see some stuff in there like the fucking Nintendo Power Glove or something like that. But we may not see that, but just like I want it to be for the super duper fucking Nintendo heads. That's what I want. That's exactly what I want. In other news, really quickly, Epic Games has filed a new lawsuit against Google and Samsung because of their quote auto blocker feature on Android. The auto blocker is turned on by default, making it harder to download third-party applications, which Epic believes to be illegal. Um, they keep regulating cell phones, like even and not just like remember Apple was basically forced to move to USB-C, I think over in Europe, and that's essentially why the change happened so quickly here in the US as well. Now they're regulating the operating system. Why is this gaming news? Well, because it's Epic who's suing, and of course, we've had the situation with Epic, trying to circumvent like the Apple Store, the App Store, and Google Play Store and stuff like that for the price of the Battle Pass, and it did not work out well. So it seems like they're throwing their weight around in the courtroom now. I'll keep you guys posted on this as soon as I hear more about it. Um, in other news, after the reveal last week of Ghost of Yotai, everybody's a buzz on that. It seems like Sony's taking a new approach where they're not going to unveil games 3, 4, 5 years out. They're going to do it closer because we just got the Ghost of Yotai reveal here at the State of Play last week, and that game is coming to PlayStation 5 in 2025. There were games that got revealed and didn't go. I want to say Final Fantasy VII Remake got revealed in 2016 and it came in 2020. Of course, they did have to press reset on the development of that game because the studio that they initially gave it to, I don't know what happened there, but Square Enix decided to bring it back in house. Um, I'm trying to think of something else that we saw really early and then didn't get it for a few years. There's quite a few games, but it seems like Sony's going to move away from that approach and they're going to reveal the games probably a year and a half, maybe or so out before the release. This is interesting because remember, we saw Wolverine and Spider-Man 2 both revealed at the PlayStation Showcase in September of 21. Spider-Man 2 is out. We know from the leak, the Insomniac leak, that there was supposed to be Venom DLC. We have heard nothing about that. So are we still getting it? We also have not seen Wolverine other than what we saw in the Insomniac leak as well. So I wonder when we're going to start getting some of those titles. We don't know what the hell Naughty Dog's working on. We know that there's a new IP. We expect them to finish up The Last of Us. Obviously, they with the TV show, I don't think they're going to end with two games. I think that they're going to give it a proper trilogy. So I don't know. But again, back to Ghost of Yotai. The announcement of Ghost of Yotai was undoubtedly the highlight of September's State of Play. Fans certainly weren't expecting to see the long awaited sequel to Ghost of Tsushima pop up on that broadcast. After all, Ghost of Tsushima was Sony's fastest selling new IP when it launched back in July of 2020, not to mention Sucker Punch's best selling game, going on to sell over 13 million copies to date. It did so well that Sony immediately fast tracked the movie adaptation, which is being handled by none other than John Wick director Chad Stahelski. Usually, Sony's first big first party reveals are reserved for PlayStation Showcase events, but fans aren't exactly going to look at this particular gift horse in the mouth. In fact, they're already eager to learn more details about Ghost of Yotai. Thankfully, developer Sucker Punch shared a few little tidbits about the sequel in an interview published in the New York Times. Creative director Jason Connell said that one of the changes compared to Ghost of Tsushima will be a less repetitive open world. Quote, one challenge that comes with making an open world game is the repetitive nature of doing the same thing over and over. We wanted to balance against that and find unique experiences. I don't want to shit on them. The game is great. It really is. But a lot of the stuff was repetitive. But honestly, and damn near every open world game, a lot of the shit is really, really repetitive. Indeed, it could be argued that Ghost of Tsushima's main flaw was its repetitiveness, while the stunning visuals and memorable story and characters were its highlights. It is a flaw the game immediately shared with many open world games, so if Sucker Punch can truly improve in this area, Ghosts of Yote could be elevated far above many of its peers. Interestingly, the developers also teased that the game will be a tale of underdog vengeance for protagonist Atsu, voiced by Eric Ishii, who will be one of the female voices for Dragon Age, the Veilguard's main character, Rook, and has worked on many big games before, from Apex Legends to Destiny 2. She's getting a lot of flack, and the neckbeard brigade is online like, oh, this is woke. Why did the main character have to be a woman? These are the type of people that follow Harrison Butker, the kicker from the Kansas City Chiefs. Oh, a woman's job is to be in the kitchen. Women and a lot of men generally, but women don't like you guys unless they're somewhat brainwashed. But again, that's neither here nor there. We're here to talk about video games. I'm very excited to play Ghost of Yotai. I can't wait to check it out. Sucker Punch has done uh Sly Cooper was great. This one, um, this and like Infamous, but like this one, Ghost of Tsushima is, if not for 2020 was stacked in the pandemic. I'll say that. We got Final Fantasy VII Remake, The Last of Us Part 2, and Ghost of Tsushima in consecutive months on PlayStation hardware. So that was a great time. Um, I think if not for The Last of Us 2, it would have garnered some consideration for Game of the Year. But that was the runaway favorite, right? We all knew that going in. This one could be released in its own, like where there's no other big stuff. However, no, I take that back. Presumably, Grand Theft Auto is releasing next year, Grand Theft Auto 6, and there are some other big titles. Mafia: The Old Country and some other games are coming next year. So it's possible that this game does not end up in the Game of the Year conversation. I don't know. We'll have to see, but I'm very, very excited to play Ghost of Yotai, and I can't wait. In other news, this is always sad to report. The layoffs, unfortunately, have not stopped, and there's more to report on. Um, this really sucks, but here it is. Activision Blizzard has laid off hundreds of California workers. Yet again, there are more layoffs. This time, Activision Blizzard are the ones responsible, and they will soon be laying off nearly 400 people in the mobile gaming divisions of their company, which are located in Santa Monica and Irvine. By doing this, it eliminates redundancies among the staff after their expensive merger with Microsoft last year, which cost $75.4 billion. It's hardly surprising anymore when Activision Blizzard layoffs start, as they have already laid off 1,003 staff in the past year, with staff being from Novato, Foster City, and Southern California, as stated by filings with the Employment Development Department. Activision Blizzard has told the EDD that 140 jobs will be scrapped beginning October 11th at the Blizzard Entertainment Studio in Irvine. The jobs that are being eliminated in Irvine cover a large variety of positions in the company, according to a letter filed by Leslie Campbell, who is the director of Activision Blizzard's Human Resources Department. The jobs being eliminated include accountants, software engineers, the director of HR for World of Warcraft, artists, game producers, and many more. The jobs eliminated weren't exclusively junior roles either, as a game director and vice president were also on the list of those being laid off from Activision Blizzard. This is insane. Activision Blizzard spokeswoman DeLay Simmons said that the company was unable to share additional details about which teams were impacted in their locations, which she pointed to the slew of media reports on the two previous rounds of major layoffs. January saw 1,900 layoffs made within the Microsoft gaming divisions, Activision Blizzard, Xbox, and ZeniMax. Then earlier in September, Microsoft Gaming announced a further 650 layoffs. Regarding the most recent layoffs, she states, quote, "The 400 roles you're seeing in the system are part of the recent news and are not new. The roles that were impacted include mostly corporate and supporting roles and some impacts to gaming teams. The layoffs are said to be coming in waves, with the first happening at Irvine and Santa Monica studios on October 11th, and Playa Vista layoffs happening in November. It is said that all layoffs at the three locations should be completed by the end of the year. With Microsoft's current finances from their gaming division specifically, it's possible there will be even more layoffs in the future, but can only be hoped that it doesn't happen. There have already been an astounding number of layoffs this year, and there are still 3 months left in the year, which could see the number rise even higher. This is absolutely insane. And the more it happens, I'm going to continue to say that. Also, the fact that this is happening right before the playoffs is absolutely insane. For everybody that championed that merger, that acquisition, merger, whatever the fuck you want to call it, you guys are part of the problem. People are complaining about the price of Game Pass increasing and they're not being day and date anymore on all tiers. You're part of the problem. We will talk about that more here in a little bit, but this is bad. There's no defending this. These people are losing their jobs right before the holidays. There is no defending this. Everybody's like, well, they'll land on their feet at another studio. And that may be true. The fact of the matter is, Microsoft was basically given autonomy over the industry when they swallowed up two publishers, and then have completely closed studios, shelved projects. This is only going to get worse. Heads are going to roll, and if they don't start seeing a return on their investment, I mean, well, they already haven't seen a return on their investment. That's why Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, Hi-Fi Rush, and other games, Grounded, um, what was the other one? I can't remember, but that's why those games went to PlayStation 5. And that's why more games by Microsoft Gaming Studios are going to end up on the PlayStation 5 and Nintendo as well. They created an ecosystem that was not sustainable, And now we're all going to see how they're going to crumble under their own weight. And again, I have more on this later, but it's nothing to um go over right now. Um where are we at? Okay, so next story. This one's very, very interesting. Um they could learn from this. It should have happened before. It sucks that it happened now because of scalpers, but this comes from VideoGamesChronicle.com. PlayStation has put conditions on the 30th anniversary PS5 Pro pre-orders in Japan. Customers have to prove they're PS4 or PS5 users before they can order a console. Yes, this should have been standard. The classic themed 30th anniversary console is limited to just 12,300 units globally and sold out within minutes of going on sale in the UK last week. There were no qualification restrictions on placing pre orders for the console, meaning scalpers were able to pre order consoles and immediately list them on eBay for prices up to 10,000 euros. However, in Japan, and they should have done this in the US and the UK as well, and they need to do this going forward. When the PS5 pre orders went live, I received an email from Sony because I buy a lot of PlayStation games and PlayStation products. Everybody's like, how'd you get an email from Sony? I'm like, unlike a lot of you, I actually really play my PlayStation. And Sony knows how many hours I've put in, they know how many games I've purchased, right? So if you didn't get one, that's because maybe, just maybe, you ain't really about this PlayStation lifestyle. But I digress. Anyway, Sony has decided to implement restrictions on pre-orders to those who can prove they are previous PlayStation players. Pre-orders are now open for the console in the Japanese PlayStation Store, and those who want to buy one need to use PlayStation Network with a Sony account registered in Japan. With that account, players need to have been signed into a powered-up PS4 or PS5 console for at least 30 hours between February 22nd of 2014 and September 19th of 2024. 10 years. I can't if they had the numbers to tell how many hours I've been on my collectively on my PlayStation 4s because I had multiple and PlayStation 5s, the number would be astronomical. Like I can look at I've put 89 hours in the Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. Rebirth. I don't know how many hours I put into Red Dead Redemption 2. I've put 40 some hours into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. And these are just games I'm naming off the top of my head. I've put quite a bit of time in, so I wouldn't have an issue. Customers can pre-order the console until the end of October the 14th. If there are more pre-orders, there are available consoles by that point. There will be a lottery to determine who gets to buy one. Um, the 30th anniversary PS5 Pro will include a console colored like the original PlayStation, along with the matching DualSense Edge, a DualSense controller, and a DualSense charging station. It will also include a console cover for the disk drive, which is still sold separately, a vertical stand, a poster, one of 30 possible designers, an original PlayStation style cable connector housing, four PlayStation shaped cable ties, a sticker, and a paperclip. Sony says each 30th anniversary PS5 Pro will have a number on it, and the console will be limited to again 12,300 units globally. It is a beautiful console, I'm not going to lie, especially if you are a fan of PlayStation and PlayStation history. I remember when they did the 20th anniversary PlayStation 4 in the original PlayStation Gray, and everybody went nuts over those. Um, this PS5 Pro and the standard PS5 Slim in the original PlayStation colorway, they're both gorgeous. They took it back. It's a wave of nostalgia. I heard something while listening to podcast Beyond on IG, and I'm starting to worry like how much this journalistic integrity really matter at IGN. But Brian Altano said, "No, there's no need for a PS5 Pro. I don't need one. That price is ridiculous." And then the minute they showed off the anniversary edition, he's like, "I know what I said, but I want this for nostalgia's sake." And the Pro was 700 by itself. And then this bundle, which includes all of this, is 900, which it is a deal. Don't get me wrong. Then he couldn't get it, and they're like, "Well, there's standard PS5 Pros available." He's like, "I don't want that." Like this is the problem with games journalism because there's very little journalism left, and it feels like, and based on what he said, he just wanted it to show it off. Like, nah, look at what I've got. I actually play my video games. I'm not just trying to put things in the background that you'll see on a video or something like that. My consoles get played. Once they come out the box, they are connected to a television and they are played. A lot of you need to practice the same thing. I'm just saying because it's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. In other news, our good friend Yoshi P is in the news. This one is about the rumors of the Final Fantasy IX remake that was in that Nvidia leak that we still have no information on. And every time Square Enix does a show, I'm like, is today the day? And then, alas, it has not been the day so far. Rumors of a Final Fantasy IX remake have been echoing around RPG circles for at least a year now, more than a year. With series fans hopeful they may soon get to revisit one of the most beloved entries in the series, but if a Final Fantasy IX remake does materialize, it may face some big challenges. I know that we got the original version for like the PlayStation 4 and the Switch, and it's more than likely on PC as well. But everybody wants a remake. I think Final Fantasy VIII is remastered if I'm not mistaken. I have it in my Xbox library. I'd have to go back and check. It may be remastered. It looks amazing in 4K. Now it's still pixelated, like polygonal pixelated, but it still looks good in 4K. Like the text and stuff like that is crisper. I don't know if that matters to anyone. Anyway, speaking with the website Video Games, Final Fantasy XIV producer Naoki Yoshida talked a bit about what a remake might look like. He warns that it may not fit in all fit in one game. Not surprised. Of course, he says, quote, of course, I do know there are requests for Final Fantasy IX to be made, but when you think about Final Fantasy IX, it's a game with huge volume, Yoshida says. When you think about all of that volume, I wonder if it's possible to remake that as a single title. It's a difficult one. It's a tough question. Yoshida seems to be suggesting that a potential remake could go the direction of Final Fantasy VII remake, which is in the middle of a planned trilogy. Fans have long had mixed feelings about splitting it into multiple parts, which offers the opportunity to add plenty of new elements, but also slows the pacing. As it stands, the third part of the trilogy doesn't figure to be out until 2026 at the earliest. I think that would be generous, considering Rebirth just came out in 2020, the top of this year, in February of this year. Um, 26 maybe. We know that the PlayStation 6 isn't coming until 2028 at the earliest. So it stands to mean that at least two entries in the series would exist on the PlayStation 5. Well, three, because there is the PS5 version of Remake. And then, of course, you're going to get, there's no way Square Enix is going to do this. There's going to be a copy that has all three games. It'll be like the Ultimate Edition. And when they do put out the physical, am I going to buy it? Absolutely. Just telling you right now. No one should be surprised when I pop up with that physical of all three games. Just saying that right now. Yoshida is right about Final Fantasy IX being a big game. It's absolutely loaded with side quests, mini games, and other content, and it's set in a very large world. Reproducing all of that material won't be easy for any development team that takes on a remake. As for Yoshida himself, he's interested in remaking a different game in the series. The one I would like to make myself would be Final Fantasy III, I think. For longtime fans of the series, Yoshida is referring to the version released on the Famicom, not the Americanized Final Fantasy VI. It's a deep cut as Final Fantasy releases go, but very much in keeping with Yoshida's attitude as Final Fantasy XIV's producer. Yoshida touches on a handful of other details in the interview, including his favorite Final Fantasy VII minigame, which is snowboarding, an Xbox release of Final Fantasy 16. He says, quote, we do want to release it on Xbox and more. In the meantime, wait for a Final Fantasy IX remake continues. What's interesting is everybody thought, a lot of the guys who were only Xbox players were like, yeah, we're getting Final Fantasy VII and remake and Rebirth and 16 and the Pixel remasters at Tokyo Game Show. And then the Pixel remasters showed up on the Xbox dashboard. So everybody's like, I told you. And then when you didn't get the other two, you're like, no, this is bullshit. I want you guys to listen. Hear me and hear me good. If you don't take anything else from this episode, understand that Sony locked up exclusive console rights for the PlayStation for the first two portions of the trilogy. This was reported last year. At the time of reporting, they had yet to lock up exclusivity on the console landscape for the third part of the trilogy. I don't see why they wouldn't, because if they don't and they put the third part of the trilogy on Xbox, well, what difference does it make if you can't play the other two? You're going to watch a YouTube video that says, well, this is what happened in the first two parts of this. I just like, if it comes to Xbox, it won't be until all three titles are released. And then there's probably still going to be like a waiting period after that of a couple of years. Just saying. So y'all got to stop getting your hopes up. It's like the people every year that tell themselves that Nintendo is doing a Metroid Prime trilogy for the Switch, and every time they don't show it, they get, disappointed. Or every PlayStation showcase or state of play, they're like, "Yeah, this is the time where we get the Bloodborne PS5 remaster," and it's like, sorry, it's not happening. Um, I want you guys to get what you want. I would like to see, Ocarina of Time rebuilt in the Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom engine, but Nintendo's not jumping for joy to do that either. So I mean, it is what it is. But I don't go into every show like this is it. This is where it happens because that's not realistic. Some like where there's smoke, there's fire. Sometimes when you hear these rumors, you're like, okay, there's tangible things, there's tangible evidence behind this. Sometimes you guys just make this shit up in your head. I'm not a Bloodborne fan, so I could care less if it happens, but I want you guys to be happy as gamers. But y'all got to stop, fooling yourselves on every fucking Nintendo and PlayStation show when Bloodborne PS5 doesn't show up and when the Metroid Prime trilogy doesn't show up on the Switch because you're really going to be disappointed every time you load up YouTube for one of those showcases. In other news, because there's been some Horizon news lately, we have Horizon Lego Adventures coming in November and Horizon Zero Dawn remastered for the PlayStation 5 and PC is coming at the end of this month. $10 upgrade path. I already upgraded mine to the PS5 version and it shows I think it's available for download like 3 days before or something like that. I got the notification on the PlayStation app on my phone, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, there's long been rumors of a Horizon Online co-op game. Um, Apparently, these rumors are founded. Horizon Online is Guerrilla's next big game, with Horizon 3 a ways off. Sony continues to invest heavily in the Horizon franchise, while the Netflix TV series has seemingly been stopped by the scandal involving showrunner Steve Blackman of the Umbrella Academy. Last week's State of Play unveiled the rumored Horizon Zero Dawn remaster. It launches on October 31st for PlayStation 5 and PC with improved character models, shaders, and textures, new conversation mocap, enhanced cameras for dialogue, and more. A couple of weeks later, Guerrilla Games and Studio Gobo will launch Lego Horizon Adventures, a family-friendly spin-off that retells the story of the first installment in a way that's more palatable to a younger audience. However, both of these are minor projects. The bulk of Guerrilla Games is working on the Horizon Online co-op game and the third single-player installment, with the latter quietly confirmed alongside the studio's restructuring in April of 2023. Speaking on the latest Spawn Wave podcast, Bloomberg's Jason Schreier revealed which one would be released first. Quote, Guerrilla Games is in an interesting place because they're working on this Horizon Online game that I'm not sure how many people want that. And so they've got this remaster coming and then the Lego game coming. Part of me feels like I wonder what happens if neither of those hit and it turns out there isn't a ton of interest in Horizon anymore. Are they still going to be doing the online game? I don't know. There are a lot of questions around their strategy around that online game that I certainly have. Here's my questions. Sony brought Sony acquired Bungie for $3 billion, and they brought them into the fold to kind of assess their online games as a service titles. Um, People will tell you that Bungie had nothing to do with The Last of Us Online being shut down, and that's not true. I'm not saying that Bungie said get rid of this fucking game and Sony said okay. That's not what happened. Bungie took a look at the game and they said it looks good visually. Naughty Dog is a great studio. I don't know how much money you're going to make off of this. The adverse point of that is Naughty Dog put out that statement. They're like, yeah, we could continue with this game, but then we'd have to pivot to an online studio. And what we do is give you guys great narrative first, third person story driven experiences. Well, you knew that when you started working on this online game, right? Um, so again, two things can be true, right? Bungie telling PlayStation that you might not make anything off of this Last of Us online game. That definitely is true. And then Naughty Dog realizing they were going to have to pivot. I think there is some truth to that. The fact of the matter is, they talk about it as if it was like really late in the game. Going into the development of that title, they knew they would have to pivot to a certain extent, unless they worked in tandem with another one of the smaller studios at PlayStation Studios to develop the online core of the game. They would have had to have supported with like battle passes and stuff like that. I'm not saying that mode that is in The Last of Us Part 2 remastered on PlayStation 5, um I can't think of the name of it right now, and it's killing me. I'm not saying that's the skeleton of the Last of Us Online game, but maybe there's some elements in there that would have appeared in the Last of Us Online. That's all I can say. Schreier goes on to say Horizon Online is their next project, not whatever the third single player game looks like, so that one might be a ways off. Sony's PlayStation live service initiative was no joke. Everybody was like, it's live service games all around, and Horizon is one of the few that hasn't been canceled or hasn't come out and flopped the way Concord did. So, yeah, a lot of questions there, but a lot of people are working on that online project. Indeed, as Schreier pointed out, following the cancellations of games like The Last of Us Online and the urban fantasy game that now defunct London studio was working on, not to mention Concord's complete debacle, Horizon Online is one of the few PlayStation Live Service projects still running. As such, it's not surprising that Sony is fast tracking it compared to the third installment in the single player series. However, it will indeed be a departure from the mainline entries, and not only because of the cooperative multiplayer. Guerrilla Games has already confirmed it will feature a new cast of characters and a stylized look that didn't exactly inspire a lot of confidence in some early leaks. I remember seeing those. I don't remember what the art direction looked like. Um, is Sony making the wrong move by prioritizing this project? I don't know. I think that I remember when they added online to Uncharted and stuff like that, and I was like, this is not necessary. It's Uncharted. Like the story is good enough on its own that it doesn't need an online multiplayer suite. But that's where the industry was pivoting at that point. Another game that I know for sure that was in development that was going to be an online only co-op type of game was Twisted Metal. There was supposed to be a new Twisted Metal, and it was supposed to release in conjunction with the Twisted Metal TV show with Anthony Mackie and Samoa Joe and all of them on Peacock, and that one got canceled. So that's Last of Us Online, Twisted Metal, whatever London studio was working on, and then Concord. That's four, and then fuck. The Deviation Games project that was canceled. Um, I'm starting to believe more and more what people say about Jim Ryan being fired or being asked to step down instead of actually retiring. It would make sense. I'm just being completely honest because it just no. No. This just doesn't make any sense. Like a lot of the moves they're making, no, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And we're starting to see the fruits of all that labor, all those man hours, all that money that was invested, and this whole live service push is an absolute fucking dud at this point for Sony. Um, TLC, don't go chasing waterfalls. Stick to the rivers and the lakes that you're used to. I'm not saying you shouldn't innovate, if two of the studios attempted to make an online game, that's one thing. You put major Sony first party PlayStation studios on an initiative to make live service games when everybody knows Sony is known for the cinematic, story driven, narrative, third person games, and they all are bangers, mostly all of them. So they kind of backed themselves into a corner for this one. Lastly, this is my big story for the week, and this one's very interesting, and I have many comments about it, so let's just go ahead and get into it. This comes from pushsquare.com. I know it's interesting because it's from a PlayStation website, a PlayStation centric website, but being completely honest with you guys, a lot of people posted this. This is just the first time I saw the link. Microsoft is investigating why devs are prioritizing PlayStation 5 over Xbox. I'm going to get into this really quickly, but I have answers of my own that I'm just going to drop on you right now. Let's start here. The PlayStation 5 at launch came in two SKUs. So did the Xbox console. The difference is the hardware inside of the PlayStation 5s, the digital and the version with the disk drive, it is the same hardware, the same GPU, the same CPU, the same amount of RAM, same solid state drive, all of that stuff. The only difference is one does not have a disk drive, right? The Xbox Series X and Series S are not on the same playing field. The Series X is a beefy monster of a console. The Series S, not so much. Well, everybody's like, well, why are they still prioritizing Sony over Microsoft? Well, here's the thing. Phil Spencer And the Xbox team mandated to developers that there could not be any parity between the game. If you release a game for Xbox Series X, that game also has to be available for Xbox Series S. The problem is the Series S is less powerful. It has less RAM. Okay? So the game is not going to run as well on the Series S because of their no parity rule. It's lesser hardware, which is why Baldur's Gate 3 was delayed on Xbox. Why? Because of the split screen. Larian had told Xbox, look, we can't get the split screen to work on the Series S. So Microsoft had to make a concession like, you know what? This one time we will allow parity because we want this game because it seems to be the runaway hit. And despite the fact that I'm not a Baldur's Gate fan, it did win Game of the Year last year, right? The other reason is this: if you're a developer, if you're a studio and you're housed by a publisher, you make video games at the outset to sell them for profit. Microsoft fostered an environment of not selling games because of Game Pass. Now, guilty. I am a subscriber to Game Pass, but I still buy games. Up until this year, I played 2K, Madden, NHL, FIFA. I played all of those on Xbox. I only switched over to PlayStation because we were doing this college football league and everybody else had a PlayStation 5 only. So that was the only way it was going to work, right? Um Microsoft has some problems, and their problems unfortunately are coming from inside the house. They know what the issue is. Number 1, you made hardware, you made two SKUs of a quote new generation of consoles, and one is less powerful and it can't run the games at the same level that the other one is. Then you gave developers a no parity mandate. The game has to run equally, it has to run on both consoles, which means you have to sacrifice some things. We were like, well, the Xbox Series S is not holding back this generation. There's a lot of things holding back this generation. Microsoft said, blah, 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 we will do cross generation games. Sony then came out and said, Jim Lyon Ryan said, we believe in generations. Okay. But then on release date, Spider Man Miles Morales was on PS4 and PS5. How do I know this? Because I started out playing it at midnight on my PlayStation 4 Pro, and then my PlayStation 5 arrived the next day, and I finished it there. By the way, I platinumed it on the PS5 and the PS4. Just saying. Um, God of War Ragnarok, PS4 as well as PS5. Gran Turismo 7, PS4 as well as PS5. Ratchet and Clank was the only one of those early titles that didn't come to PS4, and Returnal, and Demon Souls, I believe. Demon Souls Remake. So neither Sony or Microsoft believed in generations. However, third party games are performing better on PlayStation hardware. I'm not sure why. Everybody thought Microsoft was going to run away with this generation because they had the more powerful GPU. But when Mark Cerny when he went over the details and the specs for the PlayStation 5, the developers all freaked out because they were like, no, you guys don't understand how this IO work through, like this IO put through works. This is going to be amazing for us on the development end. And Xbox fanboys were like, no, stupid, no way. We got the better console. And even Phil, because you decided to buy two fucking publishers, and then you had to, when you go to court with the FTC and these European boards and stuff, they're going to want to see documents, and you had to surrender your emails. And then we find out that you emailed everybody on the Xbox team saying the day the PlayStation 5 specs were revealed, saying, oh, well, I think today proved that we had the better hardware. But then you also have emails that were leaked where you said Nintendo can't survive unless they allow you guys to acquire them. So everybody's looking at Phil after those emails come out like, fuck you. We're not going to stand for this shit. PlayStation 5 does have a weaker GPU than the Xbox Series X. Like, there's no point to lie about it. There's no point to lie about it. But third party games are performing better on the PlayStation 5. Game Pass. You fostered an environment where you told players it's okay to not buy games. Just pay us for this monthly subscription and you can play X amount of games. Then your first party studios, who are supposed to be the lifeblood of your console, they're supposed to give you your exclusives. The reason for somebody to buy an Xbox, Gears of War, Halo, the new Fable, Forza Motorsport, Forza Horizon, you give those away at a subscription price. Then you buy two publishers and you say everybody can't get it that way. It's only going to be for our, subscribers who are at Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. Day and date is only for Ultimate members now, right? So if I'm a developer and I'm making a game that I need to sell because I got to get this money back to the investors and to the publisher, and I would like to, there's certain bonuses in sales for my team who made this game. So we need to hit these sales bonuses for them to get, we got to hit our metrics for them to get these bonuses. If I worked at a studio and it was a big studio, and instead of just putting the game out for sale, they automatically put it on Game Pass, and I knew that was going to affect me getting a bonus, I'd be fucking pissed. It's still strange to me. I understand why MLB The Show is now on Nintendo and on Xbox because Major League Baseball told Sony and San Diego Studios either you put it on these other consoles or we will take the license for our entity from you. It's crazy. We have just reached October, Major League Baseball playoffs, just like Madden, just like 2K, just like NHL. When you get to the playoffs of the current season where that game releases, those games will go into Game Pass or PlayStation Plus. MLB The Show 24 was on Game Pass day one. It just came to PlayStation 5. It just came, I'm sorry, not PlayStation 5. It's been on PlayStation 5. It just came to PlayStation Plus. That's crazy. I develop a game and I have to give it to my competitor day one, but I can't put it in my company's subscription service till later. That's insane. But anyway, I digress. On to the article. A blog post on Microsoft's game developer website has highlighted the firm's intention to learn why Xbox is being skipped over in favor of other platforms. It's no big secret that certain developers have faced struggles with the Xbox ecosystem in recent times. The biggest example is Baldur's Gate 3, which was delayed on Xbox because of the Series S's console inability to competently run the game in split screen mode. As I said earlier, just saying, these are all facts. There have been problems in other areas too. The studio behind Entoria the Last Song made public its struggles to communicate with Xbox, leading to a lengthy delay. Yeah, they got the game running on Xbox hardware, but Microsoft wouldn't answer the phone about the release of the game. No response to emails and anything like that. Similar, the makers of 2D Metrovania Hawk are bringing the game to PS5 but skipping Microsoft's platform entirely. The new push from Microsoft to improve its relationship with developers is perhaps a result of missteps such as these. Quote, it's all about giving game developers what they need to feel empowered and supported by Xbox, reads the blog post. Xbox's principal user researcher, Dr. Deborah Henderson, says she wants to hear from, quote, everyone who works on games or helps support game studios because if we can make your life easier, it makes gaming better. Most interestingly, the scope of research extends to those not making their games for Xbox. Quote, if you aren't on Xbox, we love to know why, Henderson says. And honestly, if you are using our competitors' products, you probably have a great perspective we can learn from. It all sounds good to us. Better communication and open mind view on feedback can only be a positive thing. This reminds me of going into the development of the PlayStation 4. Mark Cerny and the PlayStation 4 team asked developers what they wanted. Why? Because the that chip that was created in tandem by Sony, IBM, and Toshiba, developers hated it. Gabe Newell went on record saying it's fucking hard to develop for the PlayStation 3 because of this proprietary, engine and things like that. It didn't work well. So when they talk to developers, well, what do you want? Well, we want more RAM. Why do you want more RAM? Because we want to be able to perform tasks in the background. That's why you could, starting last generation, you could download a game while playing a game, right? Well, we want x86 architecture. Well, why do you want that? Because it makes it easier to develop. And then also that would help you in the long run with backwards compatibility. PlayStation 3 games can only be streamed on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. They cannot be played natively because of the chip that IBM, Toshiba, and Sony partnered to make for the PlayStation 3. keep up here. Um, there's many a reason, and I just named off multiple ones why people are skipping Xbox. They did this to themselves. They really did. It didn't help when you guys got up on the stage at E3 2013 to try to sell us the new Xbox One. And instead of, hey, what about games? What games? Hey, we want to see the games. Instead of that, TV, 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 TV. You can do this with your TV. You can run your cable box through your Xbox. Was it cool? Yeah, but god damn it, you're here to talk about games. Show us the fucking games. Well, you can't exchange games with a friend because of DRM, and your Xbox has to be online 24/7. So I can't share games with my friend? No, not really. PlayStation later in their showcase. Here's how you share a game. He passes the game case to a friend. That fucking simple. Microsoft really shit the bed at E3 2013, and we all thought they were turning the corner. We thought that they had learned from their mistakes in the Xbox One generation, but clearly they didn't because, again, they made two SKUs of a console with different hardware. And now said console is being called a potato, and it's also being said this is holding this generation back. And then you got these Xbox fanboys who want to get on their fucking podcast and get on Twitter and get in Twitter spaces and say that's not true. It is true. It is fucking true. Like y'all thought that this was going to be like um a car. Well, fuck. In a Mustang GT and a Mustang LX, the GT usually has more horsepower, just a tad bit more. If just like y'all don't get it. This was a mistake across the board. So if they're going to do two SKUs again next time, both SKUs need to run the same hardware so you don't run into this fucking problem. Because the Xbox Series S 100% held this generation back, and anybody who doesn't think so is an idiot. But that's not to say that also Microsoft and Sony definitely prioritizing cross gen games because, well, there's 120 million PlayStation 4s out there in the wild. People haven't upgraded. Well, you know why people haven't upgraded? Because you keep releasing games for the fucking thing. Everybody's like, where's GTA 6? I'm like, you're not going to get it for a while because you idiots keep playing GTA 5 online. You're pumping money into this thing every goddamn day. They have no incentive to work on the next game. Just like Call of Duty, Madden, 2K, etc., are still releasing on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Unless you care about faster loading times with the SSD and somewhat better visuals, somewhat better performance, why should I upgrade? Why should I upgrade? Why should I upgrade? Well, I mean, hopefully with the PlayStation 5 Pro, it's up to developers how they utilize the extra power and things like that. If Rockstar decides to bust their ass and make the PS5 Pro version of Grand Theft Auto 6 the best version available, Sony's going to see an uptick in sales. And I guarantee you, I would assume more than likely because Rockstar and PlayStation have a really good fucking relationship, they more than likely will have the marketing for GTA 6. And in that case, we will see a GTA 6, PlayStation 5, and probably PlayStation 5 Pro bundle. Mark my words. I'm just saying. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys. I'm going to go ahead and end this like I do everything else. Believe in yourself first and foremost, because if you don't believe in yourself, of course, nobody else will believe in you. As always, my name is Derrick Lamon Jackson, and that is my time. Y'all have a good one.